Thank you for joining this year's Talking Art. My name's Sierra, and I am the Stakeholder Engagement and Artist Coordinator at Eastside Art Society. And tonight, I'm going to be introducing the Talking Art panel, Breath, the Art and Mechanics of Air. Before I begin, I would just like to acknowledge that we are holding this event on the traditional ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And I'm really grateful to be given this gift to gather on these lands and waters. And I really intend to work from a place of respect and responsibility to this gift. For those of you who are new, Talking Art is a 3-part artist talk series that takes place in advance of the Eastside Culture Crawl this year from November 4th to November 6th. It's a really great opportunity to get to know the artists a bit better and their process more deeply. This year, the Eastside Culture Crawl has over 500 artists participating and will be taking place from November 14th to the 17th. The Eastside Culture Crawl takes place in the Eastside Arts District, which actually houses the highest concentration per capita in Canada of artists, which we're really proud of as creators in this part of the city. In advance of the Culture Crawl, we also have our preview exhibition, which is going to be taking place starting now. And we will be having our opening reception on November 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. across all venues that are participating: Strange Fellows, The Culture, Pendulum Gallery, and Alternative Creations. This session of Talking Art will be moderated by Kate MacDonald, a Culture Crawl artist and also the co-creator of Moving Art. Kate is an award-winning multidisciplinary artist based in Vancouver, BC. Her paintings, digital collages, video art have been exhibited throughout North America and Europe, and her paintings have been featured in Wired and international editions of EQ. She shares a studio and collaborates with artist Les Sears as K8L35. Her digital art can be found on the NFT platform Maker's Place, Known Origin Foundation, and OpenSea. I'm now going to pass things off to Kate to introduce our session as well as the artists who are taking part on this panel. Kate, off to you.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. I think we've seen the full power of air and wind today on the Lower Mainland, so I'm grateful to see all of you have power this evening. So I'm going to start with introducing our artists. So I'm going to start with Honeytta. Eyvany is an award-winning multidisciplinary artist recognized for her prowess in both traditional and contemporary art forms. Her artworks, which have received significant press attention, echo a deep passion for creativity and a commitment to excellence. Honeytta's journey spans from Perth, Australia, to the vibrant art scene of British Columbia, marking her as a truly international artist, and we're excited to have her here this evening. Our next artists work together on their project, Rashi, Sethi, and Inanna, Cusi. I'll start with Rashi. She's a filmmaker, cinematographer, photographer, and video artist, a multifaceted image maker. She enjoys playing with digital and celluloid mediums to explore the creative potential of lens-based art. Thematically, her work is often playful and dreamy in nature, encapsulating feelings of escapism and wonder for the world around us. So thanks, Rashi, for being here tonight. Your co-creator on Glitter Loop, Inanna Cusi, is a multidisciplinary artist focusing on the hands-on aspect of art. She makes images through drawing, painting, sculpture, animation, and film. Her recent interest after studying film at Simon Fraser University, directing festival, playing shorts, and producing an indie feature. She's been busy in the darkroom developing for an analog motion picture. Very exciting project, and we're happy to have you here and hear a bit about that. And finally, we have the creator of Unravel, Suzy King. Whoops. Suzy King's interdisciplinary art practice evolved from her foundation in photography, enamored with light and the way it reveals texture and shape. King's work has become more three-dimensional and experimental over time. Her built set designs have evolved into installations and her still images into video making and sound collecting. Thanks for coming tonight, Suzy. We're so pleased to have you here. So, bringing it all together, when Esther Rosenberg and I were reviewing this year's Moving Art selections, we spent a lot of time talking about which elements were being represented in each piece. And air, which is so ubiquitous and is absolutely fundamental to life, it's mysterious in the way that you can't really capture it. So to me, that made it a really interesting topic for us to examine a bit tonight as we talked about your work and what else you're working on. For hundreds of years, artists struggled and a lot succeeded in capturing the motion of wind and speed in their painting and sculpture. But it wasn't until the advent of cinema, about 1895, that artists were actually able to capture air and wind in the dimensions of space and time, which was a truly exciting moment in art. And we still see air and wind as prevalent subjects to this day in video art, given the meanings of freedom and escapism and wonder. So yeah, to get started, and whether you've intentionally or unintentionally incorporated air in your work, I'm going to start with Rashi and Inanna. Your piece Glitter Loop, and maybe you can put it up for us, Sierra. The action, well, the force of air in your work creates the action through, Lucas is the actor. I'm not sure if Sierra has the clip or not.
That's correct.
There we go. Thank you. So in your piece, air is actually as much an actor in the scene as Lucas is. And it creates, well, first of all, the action of air, the breath, that moment of wonder as it's expelled. It's exciting, it's short. Do you have the video clip, Sierra? I've just cut a little piece of it because to me it shows this incredible moment of tension, right? Where Lucas lifts his hands up and you go, oh. And it's that moment, that expression just before, it's amazing. I love that. So I have lots of questions about your piece. Maybe I'm going to ask the one that everyone probably asks you, and that's how much glitter did you two have to clean up in the making of your video?
Well, we only use like a packet or something from like the craft store, but so we filmed this in my house, and so Lucas lives with me, and so yeah, then we had Inanna come over and she helped us like set up like this black backdrop and have some lights, and she was literally going like this, holding a light over his head as we filmed it. But yeah, we swept the glitter later, but definitely for the next week it was like in the randomest places, as you're cleaning you'll be like, oh, there's more like specks of glitter here and there. And I think it took about a month for it to all completely disappear.
Wow.
Because you know how it can just like get in all the small spaces.
We
It's a
also,
real glitter.
yeah, we did a lot of takes, so we kept on re-sweeping the floor glitter and giving it back to Lucas to re-blow.
Yeah.
And it was like a decent bowl, and we kept on like, okay, put your hand out, we're gonna put extra. Like we kept on trying to just get more glitter, more glitter.
Yeah.
But also luckily we realized that the really small glitter, the kind of glitter that actually is like impossible to get off, didn't work for this because it was too tiny. So this is more confetti almost, actually. It's a
Yeah.
confetti loop more than a glitter loop. So it did make it a little easier to clean up. But yeah, she is the one that had to live with it afterwards and keep on finding it and everywhere.
And how many
And
takes? Like,
Oh,
how many times did Lucas have to?
A lot.
well, what you don't see is that this was actually the third incarnation that we did, because the first time we tried, the camera didn't fully work on the 60 frames per second. So then we used a different camera, and then I lost it. I lost the literal film.
Yeah, this is right
So
when we wanted to get it scanned as well. We just couldn't find the negative anymore.
I'm pretty sure it was stolen from my car when my car broken into and my bag got stolen. So we filmed it again. So it's actually 3 times we've done it, and then each time we must have taken about at least 10 takes, because we had 100 feet of 16 millimeter, which is 2.5 minutes, which like you just want to use it, otherwise you waste it. So I think 10 to 15 takes each time probably is the number that the amount of times we made him blow glitter.
It's just fantastic. You totally succeeded. I believe in showing us like the joy and wonder in that moment. I'm going to get back to that idea in a few minutes because I want to talk to Suzy about her work. Suzy, you had this beautiful textile piece, similar, I guess, to what's hanging behind you tonight. And the way it captured light and was caught in the air, I think it truly added to what was happening in the scene.
Yeah.
So when you chose to do it, I'm going to give it away and just say she unravels this beautiful textile over the course of 5 minutes in this breezy day in the sunlight, and it's absolutely incredible. And there's that moment where she goes to pull the string, and I'm like, no, no, don't do it. But it created a mesmerizing piece of art. So how long did it take you to decide to actually pull it apart? And then when you set it up and did it, were you waiting for like a particularly breezy day, or?
That wasn't really the plan. No, I think yeah, I just making it, I knew that that's what I was going to do with it. At some point, I think I just needed something to keep my hands busy because I was going through a period of feeling kind of uncreative. So I decided to come back to crochet because it's just easy to, stitch. And then I came to this idea because it felt like a sort of release and letting go and change and shift that I needed. Yeah, and then I knew I was going to shoot it outside, so there's always those elements of unknown things. The light and wind that day were definitely just kind of what happened. I was racing against my camera battery started dying and the sun was setting, so it all had to happen just kind of fast, and I think it all added to the piece really nicely. I love that the wind, there's moments where you can see the wind picking up like pieces of dust and bits of fiber and carrying it off, and I feel like that just kind of added to the concept of the whole thing, which was really nice.
It also kind of gave that idea, because you're holding on to the string, you're unraveling it, and the wind sometimes is kind of pushing it, in the opposite direction. So you get this resistance. So it's almost like, it's not like a sail, maybe but the idea of that. And you were, I believe, particularly inspired by orb weaver spiders. Is that right?
Yeah, that's kind of what led me to the idea of doing the unraveling. Orb weavers make these beautiful webs, which I'm sure everybody's seen. They're very quintessential, like circular webs. And they take them down every day because of the damage from wind or debris that gets into them. And it was just kind of this inspiring, in a time where I felt like I couldn't be creative, this idea of like making something and then taking it apart and maybe making it again and taking it apart. It was just kind of appealing.
Amazing. It's a truly beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Very, very stunning. Honeytta. Behind you have some of your concrete fish from your piece, Concrete Whispers. So talking about how everybody's used air in your piece is a little bit different, and the elements are a little bit different. Maybe Sierra, you can show either a picture or a clip of the installation. It's this tall. How high is that?
That is like pretty much the very. We hung it from the second floor of the studio in Parker Studios, and we put a very big we had a long beam, and we just hung all the like the installation from there. But I was so lucky because I'm back then I was working with a studio mate, Colin, and he's an expert in hanging very heavy installations. So he was an amazing help during this process.
So when I look at air in your piece, and it's not just the height, like looking up into, and the upward motion you get, it's also when you're moving the pieces, it's like you're punctuating the stillness of the air, right?
Yes.
So now we know we can capture as wind and we can do this, but it's a different sense, I think, when you notice how still air can be. And, that's probably possible inside. But what was really interesting when I was thinking about your work, follow me here, is it essentially incorporates.
Sometimes, sorry.
Sorry about that. I find that your work incorporates all four elements in a really interesting way, because of course your fish are made of concrete. So we're using sand, aggregate, things that come from the ground, and then they're being heated in a kiln. Is that right? And then it's ground down, mixed into water. And then were they cast? Did you cast?
Yes, most of them have been casted.
And then they hang in the air.
Yeah. I love the juxtaposition, because to my opinion, when we're talking about air, or even when we're talking about the title, thinking about the title of our discussion, which it is breath or breathe, they both kind of like, they're unseen, and you never see air, and it is absolutely an unseen force. And the reason that I really tried to capture was the force of concrete, which is super heavy, in juxtaposition of the air, to show the resilience of the Kurdish culture and how they've been colonized, because they both absolutely are in interview with each other. The weight of the concrete, immovable, very still, and at the same time, the wind, which symbolizes the actual resilience and the hardship of the Kulbar, which it is Kurdish people have to battle the wind to be able to bring some bread onto the table of the family. So air is an important element in my installations, since at the same time that everything is super still, there is always a chance of having the relationship between the air the shadows, and also even the space around it. So everything is connected in my installations, and it's not just a fish. You're absolutely right. It's all about space. And I believe that the way that they have been hung and all the fish are going up and moving upward, as you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, I think I got something like that. You're right, because moving up means resilience, means hard work, which that's what all the Kurdish people do.
And you're actually giving me the best segue, I've got to say, for what I kind of wanted to move into at some point this evening, just talking about hard work and labor, and wanted to talk a little bit about that because I know this piece is inspired by that, but also for everyone, there's so much unseen, unrecognized labor in the work that you're doing and in a lot of the things we see every day. And I just kind of wanted you to maybe gather some thoughts about that. Do you have any thoughts? I mean,
yes,
go ahead, honey.
Yeah. I believe that, like, when I'm looking at this installation, all I can think is how much labor and how much tension goes to the work of hanging even one piece. And I use particular, like a numbering, so I can keep them in a very nice organized way. And since I work with the shadow, the labor must be in a way that not just shows it in the work, it must show it even as a shadow. Like, its shadow should show the challenges, all the hardship. And also, we normally see concrete as a very industrial material. Do you agree with me?
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a basic, it's a fundamental building material.
Exactly. So that was one of the main reasons that I tried to use concrete and break it down into small pieces. And when I have wind or fan, that it kind of like moves them around, and the sound of the clicking, it's absolutely amusing, because that industrial material now have been shattered into smaller pieces, yet you can hear them while they're actually silenced in the buildings. But I make them talk, I make them breathe, I make them move. And all of these elements are going to shape my works.
Fantastic. Suzy, I know you talked about the Orb Weaver spider and the idea of making something to take it apart again. You spent months crocheting the piece, did you not?
Mm-hmm. I did. Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of like a evening meditation that I would, stitch a little bit each night. Yeah.
And you had decided already that what you did was going to be taken apart at a later date?
Yeah. But yeah, it was just kind of the process of letting go that I wanted to go through. And I feel like, sometimes we don't always appreciate like craft and design on the same level as art, and maybe we don't always see the work that goes into something like this. But when you go to take it apart, people kind of have that gasp, like, oh no, kind of feeling. So maybe in that way, it makes you appreciate the work that goes into it a little more.
Yeah, I would hope so. I think that's something all artists and artisans and craft people face, is this idea that because what they do is seen as enjoyable, that it somehow has less value the amount of time they put into it just because it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Even though it's serious work, you know, to the person who's actually making it. And I
Yeah.
feel sometimes that's how our work becomes undervalued, perhaps,
Hmm.
a misunderstanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes process is just as important. Like just we don't always maybe have a final result of something for all the work that we're doing. So there's a lot of unseen labor in that way. You're not always maybe showing not everything you do comes to a final piece.
No, even honing a process can take years to develop, and then once it's honed, it seems effortless. But nothing is, you know, ever really effortless, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then Rashi and Inanna, I don't know who wants to lead with this one, but 10 takes, 3 times. How happy was Lucas to do it again and again and again? And I mean, he's the celebrity, right? He's the celebrity in the piece. You guys are the ones in the background, you know, making it all come together.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that much work for him, but yeah, like Inanna mentioned earlier, this was the third take because the reason that the first one didn't work out is because we used this, I pulled it out, but this really heavy brick camera. We should try to show you if it focuses.
It's an old Kodak camera that she found at a
Yeah.
cool estate sale, and I still want to make it work. And I think the thing with the camera is that it's not actually the camera's fault that it didn't work. Is that
It's something with like the
double
shutter.
perforated? I think it's actually we
Oh,
needed to
really?
have double perforated film, and we had single perforated film, and it's just a unique camera that needed the double perforated.
Yeah.
So it was
This
doing a
is-
skipping thing. It's skipping. Yeah.
This is literally like a post-war era camera from like the 50s. And I got it from like a clearance sale from Leo's Camera Supply that closed down like a few years ago. But yeah, so that was the first issue. And so after every take as well, Inanna also had to go into like the dark room and like develop the film so we could see it. And our the first 2 ways that we also scanned it was by projecting the actual film onto a wall and then filming it. And then the third time round is when we were actually able to pay someone to get it scanned and have it look really nice. So then actually, because we used like an analog medium for this, like putting it into a digital format so that we could send it out to festivals is also a part of the whole process that was like a thing. So this is really like a 3-part thing, like the shooting, then the developing and the scanning, and then of course going on to like our
There's a 4th part
software and editing it.
Yeah, editing, and then there's a 4th part that we're still working on right now that I'm doing, which is called doing a print, which is so that because I want to make this an analog loop that we can actually have on a projector, and then the loop will be like connected to itself and perpetually just going indefinitely as long as the projector is on.
So
and
a
for
projector
that,
as a perpetual motion machine.
exactly, a perpetual motion machine making the just those 6 seconds that you saw, basically that looping instead of the digital cut that we just did. We showed the scan and edited it, but the real goal is to make it then an installation piece that can be going in circles like that, and that's true because right now it's in negative form, and so I'm trying to get a print and make a print of it, and I've been doing some tests, so hopefully it'll be ready for the culture crawl actually to be showing at Cineworks as a perpetual as an installation to be there to if all goes right. I think I can finish it this week.
That would be fantastic. It's also up, is it not, at the Mount Pleasant community screen?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So are you
Yeah.
getting lots of good feedback on it there? I mean, it must feel so fulfilling to see it as
Yeah.
big as a billboard, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple friends that live in the area tell me that they saw it play. And I think that's like one of the best moments when someone is unintentionally sees your work in public and then tells you about it later. It feels really nice.
And then I think also it's interesting with this work because Rashi and I come from more of a background of filmmaking, and so most of
Yeah.
our works have been like kind of short stories and short films. But this work, like, there's no specific sound that goes with it, so it's really way closer in the art world of a moving. It's an image more that it's moving more than any kind of story or film that we've done before. So I think it shows
Public
more of that.
installation is like the best format to distribute this film versus like short films and narrative films that play in theaters. This is something that's made to play while people walk by.
And I think a lot of film, is supposed to be played to a larger audience, not to, one or two people at a time watching it in a living room, right? When art enters the public sphere and it becomes part of everyday life, and you have an audience of like everyone, that's truly fantastic. And I think it changes our communal space. It's wonderful.
I think it also like to go off of what you're talking about before with the labor and of the behind the scenes labor of art. There's and kind of going, I noticed this in like Suzy, your work of like this thing of you make art for it to disappear and take it away. And I think with our analog work, we have that too, because we like made the art and then literally lost it and
Yeah.
made it again. And there's like, that's like one thing that I love about art. And even with your installation, that you've got this installation, you've got it up, but then it's going to be up for a certain amount of time, and then where does it go? It's more, there's this finite disappearing of the labor we're putting. So when we create art for a place, for a time, it's there for that place and time, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be there for any longer or going to be there later at all.
Ephemeral. like Suzy's piece, of course, is gone, but now lives forever
As
in
a
her video. Do you want to talk maybe, Suzy, a little bit about I know there was emotional impact for you in making the work and taking the work apart. Was there any emotion you were trying to evoke maybe in the viewer or the audience?
I ended up using it in a bigger installation and show that I had. It was kind of the piece that sparked, like, when I finally was feeling like I could make more work again. I think, I don't know, maybe the letting go process of it allowed me to make totally different work than I had before. And I kind of, to me, it felt, I don't know, I think letting go like that can be really good and healing and feel good, but there is, I think, a bit of like a sadness and grief in it too. So I had made this audio piece that is maybe a bit more somber or darker that could be listened to along with it, and then contrasted that with this very like comforting space to sit in. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of a mix of emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, and the gasp, of course, when we see your hand tug the string for the first time. You literally took art and made it into thin air, and then made art out of the thin air through the process.
Yeah, that's a cool way of seeing it. I like that.
That's clunky, but
yeah. And I really like Inanna was talking about, like, I've worked with film a lot in my photography background, and I always love working with the unknown elements, like working with wind and light that day, and you kind of don't always know what's going to happen. You don't have total control. Yeah, I don't know. Working with elements like that is always nice.
And a one-take situation, essentially.
Yeah, yeah,
And with your camera running out of battery on top.
yeah.
Of it.
that was not planned, but yeah, sometimes it just forces you to, yeah, those unknown elements kind of put the right kind of pressure on, and happy accidents happen.
Absolutely. Honeytta, how about you? Emotional impact. Is
For
there a
me,
way? Is there somehow you want us to feel? I mean, the viewer is always going to put what they think into the piece, right? That's part of the wonderful thing about art. But was there something you wanted to evoke as you told us the story?
I wanted to kind of like see if I am able to make a big question in the audience head that, okay, right now this is an interactive piece that the audience can touch it, but I wanted them to feel what loneliness in being within a lot of people that they look like you, but you still can enjoy and at the same time be present, while as an individual you still have to strive to go and move and never stop and be very collective of every move. So yeah, the subtle emotion of all of these concrete, because you can feel the coldness, you can feel how this is. I always say that blue is so cold. I know the concrete is not the color of blue, but I always say concrete is like blue. It's like so cold, but it actually can be related, because a lot of us sometimes we feel that, okay, I'm all alone, but when you look around you can see that everybody's like, oh, they're trying to be collective about their identity, or you know, like kind of like maintaining at least their identity, which it is an important emotion to everybody. Yeah.
It's mesmerizing. I didn't realize the public could actually touch it too at the same time. That's amazing. Rashi and Inanna, emotional impact. I mean, I think, well, I guess I think I feel wonder and joy. Is that what you were trying to evoke, or is there more? Like what?
Portia.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Okay. I guess what we were trying to do is just going back to the whole concept of air as like an element in our art, is to visually capture air being invisible, kind of building off of what Honeytta mentioned at the beginning of it not having like a solid shape to it. And so how can we give it that, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll sometimes see air materializing in form, like even in water, you know, when like wind blows on water, then you'll see ripples and things like that. And so, and you can see it with smoke as well. Like if you point, like if you've ever seen like a laser beam kind of light, and you only see it at the end point, but if you put some sort of smoke on it, then you can see its whole path, which is really cool. And so we were thinking of ways of how to materialize that in sort of like a very like fantastical way. And so this came to mind. And so actually the concept of glitter loop in this film was inspired by like a photograph that I took earlier.
like a few years ago for a school art project, and it was of a girl blowing glitter like that, but it was just a photograph, like a frozen moment of time. But with moving image, what we thought we could do is use like an in-camera effect of like slowing down, like dropping a frame rate. And so this is shot in slow motion then, 60 frames per second. And so how that could really help us with showing the material and tactile quality of air in the piece. And then just shooting it on analog film gave it more of like the interactive texture to it that we wanted.
Also, I think, yeah, the like it kind of creates this halo around his head too with the light, and we were really trying to play with light in a new way to reflect as much light in different directions while creating a lot of contrast of having like the black shirt and black background, but then the bright glitter dots throughout. And then I'm noticing kind of throughout the 3 films that we've watched is that I feel like we see not only the air, but also the weight of gravity and how much gravity is like pulling things down. And we have Suzy's work and Honeytta's work that are like holding things up, but then the air is really pulling it down somehow, and then we have the glitter pulling I feel like we kind of can see the mechanics of gravity as well as air through the 3 pieces.
It's fantastic. I mean, the more everyone talks about it, the more I see the air. Yeah, I mean, that sounds strange, but it's true. Okay, what else shall we talk about? So Suzy talked about the happy accident of the weather that day that she had. And I know, Rashi and Inanna, you had an unhappy accident, having lost the film after the second time. Did you have any happy accidents as well?
I think just how great it turned out. Like, I don't think we were really expecting that, because at least at the very beginning, we were doing it more as an experiment to experiment with black and white, with analog, and just realizing how well the idea translated to the camera, I think, and with all the pieces we had, and it is actually way more difficult to like have that much air in your lungs and blow it out in a like uniform motion that looks so pretty. So I think that's also a happy accident, is just how great Lucas did, because yeah, it's not that easy to make it, to do the perfect blow of air that came out, I think.
He perfectly filled the screen for sure with glitter. That was amazing. Honeytta, happy accidents? Are there any accidents?
I don't know if I should call it a happy accident, or I think it's a positive accident, at least. When I was hanging them at the beginning, initially, I had all of these fish upward except the one that was downward. And then when I looked at it, like one by one, when I was like hanging each of them, because the way that I have to prepare this to be hung is quite, it really needs quite substantial time, and I have to make sure that they're not going to be tangled with each other, because they're hang on with a like a fishing line, transparent, that it's going to give the depth and what I want, and the whole weight of the concrete. So my whole story was like, the honest truth is, I wanted to show the weight of the concrete that symbolizes the heavy burden of colonial forces. And with hanging one by one, I was like, do I feel that? But then I the only thing that I changed and it made it much more like an happy accident to me was like that one fish that was going downward, I just made it again upward. And it really actually felt more like that heavy burden or the forces of the whole historical, like oppression. And when I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, now I can feel it. It's better. They all are going upward and they all are feeling it the same way. I don't want to make it a cliche and make one of them different. And the truth is, like, yeah, I wanted to show the unity and how Kurdish people, they kind of like have to carry that burden that, oh, you need me despite, like they're not looking for solely autonomy. But when I made them, this is a very smaller version of it, like the actual video that you're seeing is pretty much, it's very gigantic. But yeah, that was my happy accident that I just changed that one fish from downward to upward, and it kind of like more spoke to me and resonated more with what I wanted to convey.
That's interesting, because sometimes it's those minor tweaks that
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm not sure if the audience recognizes so much how a little tweak like that can fulfill your expectation as an artist about what you're trying to make, just by changing one thing. And now it's like, that's what I wanted. And it might be something that's so small that it might go, altogether unrecognized when it's viewed later.
Yeah, that's true.
Does anyone else have an example of something like that?
I was going to ask her about the relevance of the fish, because in the video, since we're seeing it from underneath, I didn't realize it was fish. And then like 2 seconds before you said fish, I looked, I'm like, that looks like fish. And you're like, fish. I'm like, oh, it is fish. So I was just curious, why the shape of a fish?
That's a very, very good question. I have been, okay, so unfortunately, I'm unable to be a mother. And like medically, I am unable. And fish is a symbol of reproduction of egg. And for me, when I looked at these fish, I looked at them as my own kids, like as my own, like despite I don't have any to give, but they all symbolize, like symbolize me. They are a reflection of what I wanted to create or what I wanted to have. So that is why I chose in particular eggs, that like a fish that symbolizes egg. And also, sadly, most of the time in like many, I'm not saying just Kurdistan, but like many other countries that may have some particular, like a limitation, unfortunately, historically, women have been always like super like suppressed, or if I am unable to bear a child, I am called defected. Like in the traditional culture, there's no use of me, even if I can use like a great like if I can prepare an amazing home, but it's not enough. But to me, I think the fish is a representation of me. Yeah.
And in many ways, given the meaning you've put into it, it is a continuation of your ancestry, your ancestral.
Yes.
line,
Oh, I love
right?
how you said it. I have to make a note of that. I'm in trouble.
You said it. I just summarized it.
Thank you. It was fantastic. I loved. And I love your question. I forgot. I'm sorry. The name. It's not Rashi, the other one. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Inanna.
Inanna, good.
No
Thank
problem.
you so much for the question, because just very, very meticulous people notice that and ask that question. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Honeytta, right, I'm looking at you. I'm talking to Suzy. Suzy, sorry about that.
Okay.
How about you? Have you were there little tweaks as you crocheted the piece, as you made the video after? You have a friend with you. He's
Yeah.
wonderful.
That has now joined us. Sorry, could you ask the question again?
So we were talking with Honeytta about how
Mhm.
that small tweak, has there ever been, say, a piece that for you, it was almost, and to everyone else, it may have been perfect, but you changed one thing?
I don't know.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know if anything's coming to mind. Maybe, sorry, could you, I don't know, do you have a different example or something? I'm trying to think.
Well, Suzy,
come
maybe
back to
your
it.
experience, everything was like just a happy accident. that represents that, which is a great thing to know. Maybe you really enjoy your time, and then you know that, okay, no happy accident or no nothing.
Okay, well, that's great, because let's talk about the happy accident again, because honestly, none of you could have created your work just by happy accident. So, I mean, we're getting close to the end. What are the things you do as artists to set yourself up for success when you're approaching your work? Is there like a flow or a process?
I think you have to be okay with the not success, like which has taken me a long time. Like you have to be okay with, yeah, like losing your film or something breaking, or, you have to be okay with, I think every time I go to make work, the hardest thing is to tell myself that it's okay to make bad work first. But it's like the necessary piece every time. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say I would piggyback off that, saying that obviously planning, the more you plan, the better the results usually are. But the more you're attached to this idea you have in your head, and you're like so focused on it needs to be perfect, the more you're guaranteed to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And I find when I go in letting like whatever comes out, I know this is what I want, but knowing that there's a good chance it's not gonna come out and it's okay, the more often than not, that's when the result that I get, I'm really happy with, because I let it be what it is and not have to not let myself get disappointed for not being the vision I had in my head.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like, where happy accidents happen, don't they? Is when you're not expecting something to go a certain way. And actually in one of in like the first iteration of Glitter Loop, when the video was all shaky, that actually looked really cool. I thought it did, because it kind of added a second element of motion other than just like the air being blown. So I think that that's not entirely unusable. Yeah. Like who comes up with the definition of what is perfect and what isn't perfect? Like we just decided that that was not what we were going for because the video came out really shaky, but actually that could be like another really cool effect and have its own meaning in terms of like movement art and stuff. So I think the definition of what is good art, what is perfect art, is also really up in the air, and I think artists should be given more credit on deciding that for themselves.
And
Wonderful.
I've also been thinking about that initial mistake, being like, how can I make something using that camera and intentionally making it that shakiness and having that as part of the film. So like every time you try something, you're gaining some kind of something experience, if it's for a different piece later to reinterpret in a different way, or if it's that piece, you're still always gaining something from the experiment.
That's a fantastic thought. Couple minutes left. I wonder if anybody watching has any questions. There's a Q&A box. Maybe if you've got any questions for anyone, you can pop them in there.
Actually, don't have a question, but I want to say that it was a very nice selection of our works together, because I believe that every time when I have a public, you know, like an exhibition or a public speaking, I learn from my peers and the fellows that are in that discussion. And what I really learned today, because I have been trying to kind of like collaborating with more artists, and I'm working with a very good artist at Parker Studio, Greg. He's an amazing expert in wood and biology, two different completely separate subjects, but I really, really enjoyed your textile. It was fantastic. Also, the glitter, for me, even the textile that you can see the air is coming through it. It really showed the heaviness of every single thread. And the blow of the glitter to me was more like, again, a burden that we just blew it away. So it was a beautiful, it was beautiful works. I really appreciate like this selection. Fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's been really nice to hear everybody talk about their pieces and see them. And yeah, thank you all.
Thank you all. That's
Why don't we go through just before we end, and I'll get each of you to give your socials, and then if you're going to be open for crawl, where your studio is, and if you're doing something else, you know, that's exciting too. So, or if you've got another exhibition coming up. So like, let's wrap it up that way. Let's start with Suzy.
Socials.
Yeah.
So I pretty much just Instagram. It's suzyking.art, and then my website is suzyking.ca. And this is the first year I haven't been in the crawl in a while, because I've just recently relocated out of Vancouver. So it's really nice to be included in this and be able to connect with the crawl and everybody in the selection in that way. So thank you.
Yeah, we're so glad. We were so glad that you could still, you know, found this way to be part of crawl with us. It's very exciting. And Honeytta, you're open for crawl, right?
Yes. So I am with Greg at 121. We're on the first floor in Parker Studios. And I won't have any installation there, but we're going to have so many concrete jewelry, particular very, I don't know how to say it, like konzoshi. Do you know what a konzoshi is? Like a hairpins. And my Instagram is my first name and my last name, and almost everything is under my first name and last name, so I'm easy to find. But I'm mostly on Instagram. I would love to connect with anybody who they love art, and in particular installation, but any form of art is absolutely appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Honeytta?
So I'm Rashi.gram on Instagram. So that's just my first name like in the second half of Instagram. Yeah, this is my first year in the crawl. So I'm really excited to just visit people and experience what it's all about in person. But yeah, really happy to be a part of this and seeing things for the first time. I guess Inanna can tell you more about the in-person installation at Cineworks that she's prepping for Glitter Loop.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Inanna Ink, INK, so it's my first name and then ink, like black ink. and I am, the place I'm doing most of the work is Cineworks Analog Center. It's at 312 Main Street, and it will be open for the crawl. It's down in the basement, but you can come to the first floor that's open with a lot of things, and then we take people down to the basement in groups. And I'm just working on making the analog loop. So as long as things go well, I do think I've got some good progress last week. So I really hope this week I finish it and I can have it playing during the crawl. That's really the goal. So hopefully it works out. But regardless, you should check out that place, because there's a lot of cool old analog equipment, and if you're interested in anything analog, they're the, especially motion picture analog, they're the only place in Western Canada to go to for developing. So definitely you should check out their space. And then one last from a previous question that I feel like I missed, it was like, what do you always want to change or something? And then, like, even though I love the film and I think it's perfect, I still often look at it and I'm like, I wish I put more light. Like like, there's just the things like that I was like, oh, I always want more light somehow. But that's just, there's always something that you wanna change. So it was really great to talk with you guys, and I love watching all the films earlier on YouTube too, of the different exhibitions.
So just once again for our audience, I just wanted to remind them we've got Talking Art for the next 2 nights with Sierra, who you met earlier, as your host. Our preview exhibits open on Thursday, November 7th, and they will be at Strange Fellows Brewing, The Culch, Pendulum Gallery downtown, and Alternative Creations, which is just off Commercial Drive, and it's always a lot of fun. So we hope to see people out for that. And Moving Art, if you missed it earlier tonight, it will be available online. It's screening at Vaudeville Cinemas, which you have to look up on the Crawl website at culturecrawl.ca. And finally, we'll be taking part in Lumiere. Moving Art will be projected on the front of the community center through the month of November, starting on Thursday as well. So thank you to everyone for coming tonight, and I hope to see you during Culture Crawl.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
See you at Crawl. We're gonna crawl.
Thank you.
B11 on the map.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.